Fasten your seatbelts and stop sending nudes. That message from a Southwest pilot who threatened to turn his plane around when a passenger on the flight from Houston to Cabo San Lucas started airdropping nude photos to the other travelers.
So this continues while we're on the ground. I'm going to have to pull back to the gate. Everybody's going to have to get off. We're going to have to get security involved. And it's vacation that's going to be ruined. So you folks, whatever that airdrop thing is, quit sending naked pictures. Let's get yourself to Cabo.
So I am so glad that Erica Hill is with me now because we've been teasing this story all morning. And for the life of me, I can't figure out what was happening. They were airdropping naked photos around the plane.
I still can't figure out why anybody would do this and think that A, it's a good idea, or B, anybody wants to see them. But it happened. Aren't phones a beautiful thing? So this was a flight last week, Houston to Cabo San Lucas, a Southwest Airlines flight. So a passenger who shot that video tells CNN she gets on the plane with her girlfriends, and all of a sudden somebody's trying to airdrop a picture. She declines that picture, but two people in front of her accepted it. Turns out it was a nude picture. She didn't want it. Gee, I wonder why. So another passenger then alerts this to a flight attendant, says, hey, this is what's happening. There's somebody on the plane who's airdropping this picture, trying to send it to us. The flight attendant tells the pilot makes his "don't make me turn this plane around" announcement. I do say I love the part, Drew, where he's like, whatever this airdrop thing is. Like, hey, Dad, we have this new thing on our phones. And so they ended up, right? Everybody learned how to behave. We stopped sending pictures. They didn't have to turn the plane around. They took off. But apparently this is, like yet another new, I don't know, tech thing.
This is like a cautionary tale that if you got a message in your phone that says someone wants to airdrop you, maybe you say,
no thanks. Real quickly, we should say Southwest Airlines tells CNN safety, security, and well-being of customers and employees is the highest priority at all times, and noted that when made aware of a potential problem, our employees address issues to support the comfort of those traveling with us. Also, I would say, maybe set your airdrop to contacts only.
Yes.
Pro tip.
Hello. Because then you know the people who are sending you naked photos. Erica Hill, thank you.
Erica Hill not sending naked photos ever.
CNN's coverage continues right now.
Fire mapped at 4,625 acres. In color now, switching to infrared. You'll see top of the screen, that'll be Castaic Lake. East flank of the fire running into Castaic Lake in many places now. Left side of the screen, head of the fire, and Templin Highway, not far from the head of the fire now.
Some really shocking news on this Wednesday night. Just this hour, finally getting the results from Alaska's special election to replace the late Republican Congressman Don Young. Don Young represented Alaska in the at-large seat for 50 years, since 1972. He's been a Republican the whole time. The last time the state was represented by a Democrat, I misspoke, was back in 1972. And NBC is projecting that the Democrat in that race, a woman named Mary Peltola, has won that election. Just shocking. You see who she won it over. Sarahpalin, of course, the erstwhile governor, who was then a VP candidate in 2008 and then resigned the governorship and then had a reality show and then kind of, I don't know what happened to her, but wanted to get back in the game. So she runs in Alaska, which is a very red state. Its at-large congressional district has existed for 63 years. And like I said, for 50 years, the seat was held by Young. In fact, the guy before Young, a guy named Nick Begich, it's his grandson who ran against Sarahpalin as a Republican. The two didn't like each other very much. And, well, this is the result. The election to serve out the remaining few months of Young's term was back on August 16th, more than 2 weeks ago. Democrat Mary Peltola faced off against the former Alaska governor. She was, of course, endorsed by Donald Trump. There you see the other guy, Republican Nick Begich, who made a strong showing. there was something of a bitter feud between the two Republicans in the race. In fact, do you know this? Palin's former in-laws even threw Begich a pre-election night party instead of supporting their ex-daughter-in-law. And because Alaska just started using ranked choice voting, when voters rank their preferred candidates in order, if their top choice does not meet a certain threshold, their vote instead goes to their second-ranked candidate, and so on. You would expect a lot of Begich voters to put Palin number 2, but not enough did, because there was some bad blood, because they didn't like Sarahpalin. And so because enough Republicans don't like Sarahpalin, Mary Peltola. Huge upset win for the Democratic Party. A win that has to buoy the spirits of Democrats everywhere going into the midterms. It's not quite Scott Brown wins Ted Kennedy's seat in the reverse, but it's a little in the ballpark. We'll see. This comes on the heels of the Democratic victory in New York's 19th last week. Democratic flipped a seat that had been Republican-controlled for almost 50 years tonight in a red state special election. Another sign the party's headwinds are changing heading into November's elections. Also, Peltola will become the first Alaska native to serve in Congress. She'll have to run again in November against the same candidates to hold on the seat, but one of many fascinating races unfolding throughout the country.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Kira Phillips. We begin with breaking news. That high-stakes court hearing wrapped up in the legal battle over whether a neutral special master will review seized documents from that FBI raid at Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. A federal judge in Florida hearing arguments today from the Justice Department and the former president's legal team, ending proceedings without a decision from the bench. Trump's attorneys say a special master is necessary to ensure an independent review of those documents. The DOJ arguing a special master is not necessary because investigators have already reviewed the material for potentially privileged records. This is all coming 2 days after that stunning court filing from the department accusing Trump's lawyers of obstructive conduct during efforts to retrieve those classified documents that the former president was hoarding at his estate.
And Ali Vitale, I think, has some information about that. Ali?
Yeah, Andrea, yet another addition to the conversation that you're having and yet another salvo in what DOJ is doing on these investigations into Donald Trump, specifically this one around the overturning of the 2020 election results or the attempts from the Trump campaign to do so. And of course, around January 6th, we're now learning from a source familiar telling our Peter Alexander that Pat Cipollone and Pat Philbin, two top White House lawyers from the Trump administration, will be speaking before a grand jury tomorrow. And it comes really at a time that we have rare insight into what they might be able to tell the Department of Justice. DOJ loves to do this stuff behind closed doors, but the public now has the benefit of the transparency lent by the January 6th committee's investigation, where Pat Cipollone has been a key witness, someone that they have shown the public multiple times over the course of their committee hearings, and someone who can speak to what was going on both inside the White House at the top echelons of the administration, but also potentially conversations that were being had with people who are outside the White House but allied with the former president. All of this speaking to the larger landscape around January 6th and how the Trump...
Russian state news agencies report a Russian oil executive has died after falling out of a 6th-floor hospital window. Ravil Maganov chaired oil and gas giant Lukoil, now the country's second-largest oil company, called for a fast resolution to Russia's war on Ukraine. And that was back in March. Anna Stewart is following the story for us from London. Anna, peculiar news headline, this board member, this executive falling out of a window. What do we know about what the Russians are saying with regards to his death? And then importantly, are we also looking at Lukoil's stance against the war of Russia in Ukraine?
Well, we certainly are. But let's start with how the reporting of this death has been within Russia. According to Russian state media, we have RIA Novosti, who cited a law enforcement official, quoting him as saying the businessman most likely committed suicide. TASS quoted a source saying the man fell out of the 6th-floor window and died as a result of his injuries. And meanwhile, the company's statement from Lukoil simply says he passed away following a severe illness with no mention of the fall. Of course, though, this death raises serious questions. At least 5 other prominent Russian businessmen have reportedly died by suicide since late January. And as you say, Lukoil, particularly a very high-profile company, the second biggest oil company in Russia, was really very publicly critical of Russia's invasion of Ukraine back in March. We can bring you the statement they released then from the board of directors. They said they expressed their deepest concerns about the tragic events in Ukraine. They called for the soonest termination of the armed conflict and expressed their sincere empathy for victims who were affected. And they strongly supported a lasting ceasefire and a settlement of problems through serious negotiations and diplomacy. It's worth noting, actually, that the founder, CEO, and major shareholder of that company resigned the following month. He was also targeted by UK sanctions, and at the time, Reuters reported that he was worried that his position would somehow, affect the company's operations. The following month, in April, another Lukoil executive, also a member of the board, died in what I would say was pretty mysterious circumstances as well. This was Alexander Subbotin. According to state media TASS, he died from a heart attack in the home of a shaman where Jamaican voodoo rituals took place. Reportedly, according to this article, he arrived there in a state of severe alcohol and drug intoxication. So another death, another mysterious death from a Russian businessman, and another one from this company, Lukoil.
Mysterious circumstances, as you say, Anna Stewart. Thank you so very much.